The conference room on the 14th floor of the Morrison building. My mother's house. 18 years of my life. The mediator's pen stopped moving across his yellow legal pad, and for the first time in 4 months, I saw the certainty fade from my sister's face. That November morning started like any other mediation session. We'd been at this for 3 weeks now, sitting across from each other in this sterile room with its fake plants and motivational posters about finding common ground. My younger sister Karen, explaining once again why she deserved half of our mother's house, the Victorian on Hawthorne Street that had been in our family for 42 years. The house our mother left to me in her will. The mediator, James Porter, a retired judge in his 70s with kind eyes and a gentle manner, seemed increasingly sympathetic to Karen's case. Too sympathetic. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really began. Not 4 months ago when Karen filed her lawsuit. Not even 18 years ago when I moved back to Portland. It started 20 years before that, in 1986, when I was 26 years old and naive enough to believe that family meant something beyond blood and birthdays. I was teaching 3rd grade in Seattle, making decent money, had just gotten engaged to Linda. Karen was 22, fresh out of college, already landing her first sales job in San Francisco. Our parents were in Portland, still in the house where we grew up. Dad worked for the post office. Mom was a librarian at the county library. They weren't wealthy, but they were comfortable. They had each other, and that seemed like enough. Dad died in 2006. Heart attack at 68, sudden and brutal. I flew down for the funeral, stayed for 2 weeks, and realized something that changed everything. Mom couldn't manage alone. Not because she was incapable, but because she was drowning in grief. The house that had been filled with 40 years of marriage was suddenly too big, too quiet, too full of memories. I called Karen. We need to talk about Mom. What about her? Karen's voice had that clipped efficiency she'd developed in corporate America. She's struggling, Karen. Dad handled everything. The bills, the repairs, the yard. She doesn't even know where he kept the insurance papers. She'll figure it out. Mom's tough. She's 66 and just lost her husband of 41 years. She needs help. Then help her, Rob. You're only in Seattle. I'm in San Francisco running a whole territory. I can't just drop everything. I'm not asking you to drop everything. I'm asking you to consider what Mom needs. Look, I'll visit more often. I'll call her every week, but I can't move back to Portland. My career is here. I hung up feeling something I'd never quite felt toward my sister before. Not anger exactly, but a cold recognition that Karen and I had different definitions of family. 2 months later, I made a decision that would define the next 18 years of my life. Linda and I talked about it for weeks. We'd been planning to get married, buy a house in Seattle, start our family there. But every time I called Mom, she sounded smaller somehow, more lost. I'm moving back to Portland, I told Linda, to help my mom. Linda, bless her, didn't even hesitate. Then we're moving back to Portland. Your mom needs you, and I love you. That's all that matters. We got married that June in Mom's backyard. Karen flew up for the weekend, gave a nice toast at the reception, and flew back Monday morning. She had a big presentation on Tuesday, she explained. Couldn't miss it. Linda and I moved into the house on Hawthorne. The Victorian was big enough, built in 1978, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. We took the upstairs. Mom stayed in her bedroom on the main floor. The arrangement worked. I got a teaching position at Bridal Mile Elementary. Linda found work as a dental hygienist. We settled in. Karen visited maybe 3 times that first year. Christmas, Thanksgiving, and once in the summer. Each visit lasted 2, maybe 3 days. She'd breeze in with expensive gifts, take Mom out for a nice dinner, and then she'd be gone again, back to San Francisco where she was climbing the corporate ladder at a medical device company. I don't know when exactly I realized that this was permanent, that I was now the primary caregiver for my mother. Maybe it was the first time Mom had a health scare, a bad fall in 2008 that required 3 weeks of careful monitoring. I called Karen. "How's Mom?" she asked. "Bruised ribs, possible concussion. I'm taking her to all the follow-ups." "That's scary. I'm glad you're there. Do you want to come visit? She'd probably love to see you." "I wish I could, but we're launching a new product line. I'm completely underwater. Tell her I love her, okay? That became the pattern. Mom would have a health issue. I'd handle it. Karen would express concern from 900 miles away. To be fair, Karen did call. Every Sunday like clockwork, she'd phone Mom for exactly 20 minutes. I'd hear Mom's voice brighten when the phone rang, hear her tell Karen about her week, ask about Karen's life in San Francisco. The calls were friendly, warm even, but they were also surface. Karen knew about Mom's book club and her garden, but she didn't know about the doctor's appointments, the medication schedule, the way Mom cried sometimes on Dad's birthday. The years passed. Linda and I had 2 kids, Sophie in 2009 and Jake in 2011. Mom doted on them, became the grandmother who was always available for school pickups, helping with homework, baking cookies. She was part of our daily lives in a way that felt natural and right. Karen married in 2012, a big wedding in Napa Valley. It must have cost $50,000. Mom and I flew down for the weekend. Karen's husband, Derek, was nice enough, some kind of financial consultant. They bought a house in Marin County with a view of the bay. Karen's career flourished. By 2015, she was a regional VP, making serious money. She'd visit Portland once, maybe twice a year, always arriving in a rental car, always professionally dressed, even on vacation, always with one eye on her phone. Mom started showing signs of slowing down around 2018. Nothing dramatic at first, just the normal aging process. A little less steady on her feet, memory occasionally fuzzy. I started doing more around the house, taking over tasks Mom used to handle. Linda was incredible through all of it, never complaining about sharing our home with my mother, treating her like her own mom. In 2020, the pandemic hit, the world shut down, and suddenly Mom's health became my full-time job on top of remote teaching. Karen couldn't visit, which I understood, but I also noticed that the Sunday calls started becoming shorter, less frequent. Mom didn't say anything, but I could see the disappointment when a week would pass without hearing from Karen. I called my sister in April 2020. Karen, Mom's feeling isolated. Could you maybe video call with her a few times a week? God, Rob, yes. I've been meaning to. Work has been insane. Everyone's panicking about the supply chain. I know things are tough, but Mom's 80 years old and stuck in the house. A call would mean a lot. You're right. I'll do better. Thanks for taking care of her. She did call more frequently for about a month. Then it tapered off again. By 2022, Mom needed more help. Not nursing home level care, but more than I'd been providing. We hired a part-time aide, Maria, who came 3 afternoons a week. Cost was about $1,800 a month. Mom's savings were decent, but not infinite. I started contributing. The first check I wrote was for $2,000 to cover the gap between Mom's income and her expenses. I sent Karen an email. Mom's finances are getting tight with the aid. Can you help with some of the costs? Her response came 2 days later. Absolutely. Let me know what you need. I sent her a breakdown. Half the aid costs would be $900 a month. Karen sent a check for $500. The note said, "This is what I can do right now. Derek and I just bought a vacation place in Tahoe, and things are tight." I looked at that check for a long time. $500 from a woman who'd just bought a second home. I didn't push it. I just made up the difference myself. And the month after that, and the month after that, by 2023, I was covering about $2,000 a month in expenses for Mom, beyond what her Social Security and small pension provided. Mom's health declined more noticeably in early 2024. She was 84, and the years were catching up. More doctor appointments, more medications, more care needed. I reduced my teaching hours to 3 days a week so I could be more available. The financial hit was significant, probably $25,000 a year in lost income, but Mom needed me. Karen came to visit in March 2024 for Mom's birthday. She stayed 3 days, took a lot of photos for Facebook, bought Mom an expensive cashmere sweater. As she was leaving, I walked her to her rental car. "Karen, we should talk about Mom's care plan." "What do you mean?" "She's getting frailer. At some point, we might need to consider more intensive help, or even a facility. A nursing home? Mom would hate that." I know. That's why I'm working so hard to keep her at home, but it costs money and time. I'm doing most of it, but I could use more help from you. Karen opened her car door. Rob, I appreciate everything you're doing. I really do. But I'm 900 miles away. What do you want me to do? You could contribute more financially, or visit more often, or even just call more regularly. Mom asks about you all the time. I call every week. Every other week. Sometimes less. I'm doing my best, Rob. Not all of us can drop our careers to play house. The words stung more than they should have. I'm not playing house. I'm caring for our mother. And I'm grateful. I am. But some of us have actual responsibilities, careers that matter, people depending on us. She drove away. I stood in the driveway for a while, feeling something shift inside me. For the first time, I felt genuine resentment toward my sister. Mom passed away in June 2024. Peaceful, in her sleep, in her own bed. I was grateful she got that at least. Karen flew up the next day. She cried at the funeral, gave a moving eulogy about what a wonderful mother we'd had, how Mom had always supported her dreams. People came up to both of us after, telling us how lucky we were to have had such a remarkable woman as our mother. The will reading was a week later. Mom's attorney, Harold Chen, a kind man in his 60s who'd handled Mom's legal affairs for 20 years, gathered us in his office. Eleanor's will is straightforward, he began. She left the house on Hawthorne Street to Robert, along with its contents. Karen, she left you her jewelry collection and a few specific personal items listed here. Karen's face went very still. Just the jewelry? And the items listed. She also left some charitable bequests. The rest of her modest savings will be split equally between you both. That comes to about $18,000 each. What about the house? As I said, the house goes to Robert. The house is worth over $1 million. $1.3 million, according to the most recent appraisal. Your mother was very clear in her wishes. Karen looked at me. You knew about this? Mom told me last year. I assumed she'd told you too. She never said a word to me. Harold, this doesn't seem right. I'm her daughter too. Harold Chen's expression was sympathetic but firm. Eleanor was of sound mind when she executed this will. She reviewed it multiple times. These were her wishes. After the meeting, Karen and I went to a coffee shop. She was furious, barely containing it. 18 years I lived with Mom, Karen. 18 years of daily care. You visited twice a year. I was building a career. I had responsibilities. And I had responsibilities too. To Mom, to my family. I gave up a lot to be there for her. So this is my punishment? You get $1 million house because you chose to live with Mom? Mom made her choice based on who was actually there for her. Karen stared at her coffee. We'll see about that. 3 weeks later, I received notice that Karen was contesting the will. Her filing was 38 pages long, and it painted a picture of our family that I barely recognized. According to Karen's lawsuit, our mother had been unduly influenced by me. I had isolated Mom from Karen, poisoned their relationship, and manipulated Mom into leaving me the house. Karen claimed she'd been deeply involved in Mom's care, visiting frequently, providing emotional and financial support. She claimed Mom had always intended for the house to be divided equally, but I'd pressured her to change the will. Karen was seeking to have the will overturned, and the estate split 50-50. She also wanted reimbursement for the emotional distress of being cut out of her rightful inheritance. I read the filing 3 times, and each time I felt sicker. The dates were real. Christmas 2015, Thanksgiving 2019, Mom's 83rd birthday in 2023. But the descriptions of what happened at those visits were fiction. Karen claimed long, intimate conversations about the future. Karen claimed Mom had repeatedly told her the house would be shared. Karen claimed I'd undermined these promises. I hired an attorney, Monica Reeves, one of Portland's top estate litigation lawyers, a sharp woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and no-nonsense attitude. She read Karen's filing and shook her head. This is going to be expensive, Robert. She's requesting mandatory mediation first, which is standard in Oregon for estate disputes under $2 million. If mediation fails, we go to trial. Can she win? Can you actually overturn a clear will with these kinds of claims? It's difficult, but not impossible. If she can prove your mother was subject to undue influence, if she can show a pattern of manipulation, if she can demonstrate that your mother's true wishes were different from what's in the will, then yes, a judge might set it aside. But I didn't manipulate Mom. I just took care of her. I believe you. But we need to prove it. We need evidence. Do you have anything documenting your care? Records of doctor visits? Financial contributions? Anything showing you were the primary caregiver? I have some stuff. Medical records with my name as the contact. Some receipts. Get me everything you can. Bank statements, emails, anything showing the reality of who cared for your mother. I spent the next month going through 18 years of records. I found medical files with my name on every emergency contact form since 2006. I found receipts for modifications to the house to make it safer for Mom. A wheelchair ramp I'd paid for in 2022. The stair lift installed in 2020. I found bank statements showing monthly transfers to cover Mom's expenses. But I also found something else. Tucked into a drawer in Mom's room, I found her diaries. Mom had kept journals for decades, daily entries about her life, her thoughts, her observations. I'd known about them vaguely, but had never read them. Now, with shaking hands, I opened the one from 2006, the 14th of June, 2006. Robert and Linda moved in today. I feel guilty, like I'm a burden, but Robert insists it's what he wants. He's giving up so much to help me. I'm grateful beyond words. I flipped through the years, entry after entry about our daily life together. Mom writing about helping with Sophie's homework, baking cookies with Jake, evening conversations with Linda and me. There were entries about Karen, too. The 28th of December, 2015. Karen was here for Christmas. It was lovely to see her, though only for 2 days. She seemed so stressed, always on her phone. I wish she'd stay longer. I wish she'd let me really know her. The 24th of November, 2019. Thanksgiving today. Karen called, said she couldn't make it this year. Some work thing in New York. I understand, but I'm disappointed. Robert and Linda made such a nice dinner. I'm lucky to have them here. The 19th of March, 2023. My 83rd birthday. Robert threw me a party, invited all my book club friends. Karen sent flowers, called briefly. I heard her husband in the background saying they needed to leave for dinner reservations. I wanted to tell her about the new medication causing problems, but she seemed rushed. I'll tell Robert. He'll handle it. He always does. Page after page of Mom's private thoughts, documenting who was actually there, who actually cared. I brought the diaries to Monica. She read through them carefully. This is good, Robert. Very good. Your mother's own words documenting the reality of your relationship versus Karen's minimal involvement. But we need to be strategic about how we use this. Why? It proves everything. It proves a lot, but Karen will argue these are private thoughts, possibly biased, possibly influenced by you if you were the only one around. We need corroborating evidence. The mediation was scheduled for late October, almost 5 months after Mom's death. The mediator was James Porter, who had a reputation for being fair, but also for pushing hard for settlements. The first session was in that conference room I mentioned at the start. Karen arrived with her attorney, Stephen Marsh, a slick guy from one of Portland's big firms. They sat across from Monica and me like we were opposing teams in a negotiation, not siblings grieving our mother. James Porter started with the standard mediator speech. I'm here to help facilitate a resolution that works for both parties. This isn't a courtroom. I can't force anyone to do anything, but I can help you find common ground. Let's start by hearing from each side. Karen spoke first, her voice calm and measured, the same voice she probably used in sales presentations. Rob, I don't want this to be a fight. We're siblings, and we just lost our mother. But Mom made me certain promises over the years, promises about the house being for both of us. She knew my career meant I couldn't live in Portland, but she always assured me the house would be shared. That was her wish, to treat her children equally. I looked at my sister. She seemed sincere. That was the worst part. She seemed to genuinely believe this. Karen, I said, trying to keep my voice level, I lived with Mom for 18 years. You visited maybe twice a year. When did these promises supposedly happen? It wasn't one conversation, Rob. It was years of conversations. Mom talked to me about the house, about how it was a family home, how she wanted both her children to benefit from it. I was there for those visits. I don't remember Mom ever saying the house would be split. They were private conversations, Rob. Mother-daughter talks. Not everything happened when you were in the room. Monica interjected. Let's focus on finding a solution. Karen, what would you consider a fair resolution? Equal split of the estate. The house should be sold and the proceeds divided 50-50. I'm willing to let Rob have first option to buy my half at market value, but I want my rightful inheritance. The house is worth $1.3 million. You're asking for $650,000. I'm asking for what my mother intended. Your mother's will was very clear. She left the house to Robert. Karen's attorney leaned forward. Wills can be challenged when there's evidence of undue influence. We have a strong case that Robert isolated Eleanor from Karen, monopolized her time and attention, and pressured her into disinheriting her daughter. That's not what happened, I said, feeling anger rise. I didn't isolate Mom from anyone. Karen chose not to visit. Karen chose her career over her family. That's exactly the kind of manipulation we're talking about, Stephen Marsh said, making Karen feel guilty for having a successful career, for not abandoning her life to move back to Portland. I didn't ask Karen to abandon anything. I asked her to visit more than twice a year. I asked her to contribute to Mom's care. The first session ended with no progress. James Porter scheduled 2 more sessions for November. Between sessions, I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, thinking about those visits Karen mentioned. Christmas 2015. Had Mom said something I missed? Thanksgiving 2019. I'd been busy cooking. Maybe I hadn't heard a conversation. Mom's 83rd birthday. I'd been corralling kids and guests. Had there been a private moment between Mom and Karen where promises were made? Linda noticed. You're not eating. You're not sleeping. This is killing you. If I lose this case, we lose the house. The house we've lived in for 18 years. The house where our kids grew up. Where we took care of my mom. Karen wouldn't really force us to sell. I used to think that. Now I don't know what Karen would do. The second mediation session was worse. James Porter seemed increasingly sympathetic to Karen's position. He kept using phrases like equal treatment, mother's wishes, and family fairness. Robert, even if the will is technically valid, don't you feel some obligation to honor what might have been your mother's underlying intent? She clearly loved both her children. She probably wanted both of you to benefit from her estate. I felt my blood pressure rising. Her intent is in the will. She left me the house because I was the one who was there. I gave up income, career advancement, time with my own family, to care for her. That's why she made that choice. But you never offered Karen any role in the house. You never suggested she might have some claim to it. Because it was Mom's house. Mom decided who to leave it to. Not me. James Porter looked disappointed. Estate disputes often involve these kinds of informal understandings. Courts do recognize that not everything needs to be in writing. Sometimes a mother's word to her daughter is enough. That's when I realized he'd already made up his mind. He thought Karen deserved something. Maybe not 50%, but something substantial. And as a mediator, he was steering us toward that outcome. Monica saw it too. After the session, she pulled me aside. I don't like this. Porter's showing bias. If he recommends a settlement and you reject it, that could look bad if we go to trial. Sometimes judges give weight to mediators' recommendations. What do? We need evidence. Hard evidence. Something that shows your mother's clear intent and documents your actual role versus Karen's minimal involvement. I went back to the records. I found the home modification receipts, $18,000 I'd spent over the years making the house safer for Mom. I found the aid payment records, over $40,000 I'd paid when Mom's funds ran short. I found every medical record from 2006 to 2024, every single one listing me as primary contact, emergency contact, decision maker. But I also found something in Mom's email account, which I still had access to as executor. An email exchange from 2020, during the pandemic. Karen had written, "Mom, I'm so sorry I can't come visit. With the travel restrictions and everything going on at work, it's just impossible right now. But Rob's there, so I know you're in good hands." Mom had replied, "I understand, sweetheart. These are difficult times for everyone. Robert and Linda are taking wonderful care of me. I miss you, but I know you're busy. Love, Mom." Karen had responded, "Thanks for understanding, Mom. I promise I'll visit as soon as things calm down. You know I'd be there if I could." But there was another email, one I hadn't seen before. Mom had drafted a response, but apparently never sent it. It was in her drafts folder, dated the 15th of April 2020. "Karen, I love you, but I need you to know something. Robert has given up so much to care for me. He and Linda have shared their home with me for 14 years. They've adjusted their lives, their finances, their plans around my needs. You call when you can, and I appreciate that, but it's not the same as being here. I want you to know that when I'm gone, the house will go to Robert. It's the right thing to do. He's earned it through years of daily care and sacrifice. I hope you'll understand. I love you both, but I can't pretend you've contributed equally. Love, Mom." I stared at that email for a long time. Mom had written it but never sent it. Maybe she'd chickened out. Maybe she'd decided it would hurt Karen too much. But the intent was clear. I showed it to Monica. She smiled grimly. "This helps. It shows your mother's thinking, even if she never sent it. But Karen will argue it was just a draft, that your mother reconsidered. What more do we need? Ideally, something that contradicts Karen's specific claims. She says your mother promised her the house at Christmas 2015, Thanksgiving 2019, and the birthday in 2023. We need evidence that disputes those claims." I went back to Mom's diaries, looking specifically at those dates. And I found them. The 26th of December, 2015. Karen left this morning after a 2-day visit. It was good to see her, but I wish we'd had more time. She spent most of yesterday on work calls. We barely talked beyond surface pleasantries. I wanted to discuss my will, my plans for the house, but she seemed distracted. Maybe next time. The 25th of November 2019. Karen called today to say she couldn't make Thanksgiving. I'm disappointed but not surprised. She's always so busy. I wanted to talk to her about my estate planning, about my decision to leave the house to Robert. Harold Chen advised me to have that conversation with both kids, but how can I when Karen's never here? The 19th of March 2023. Birthday party today. Karen sent beautiful flowers and called for about 10 minutes. She sounded rushed. I tried to bring up my will, tell her about my decision, but she cut me off, saying she had to run. I'll need to put it in a letter, I suppose. Robert deserves the house. He's earned it. The third mediation session was scheduled for November 15, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, 5 months after Mom's death. That morning, I sat in my truck in the parking garage, holding the folder with Mom's diaries, the unsent email, the records of my financial contributions. I thought about calling Karen, trying one more time to make her understand before we went in. But what would I say? We'd said it all already. I walked into the conference room. Karen was already there, looking confident. Stephen Marsh was reviewing documents. James Porter was setting up his laptop. We sat down. Monica put the folder on the table. "Before we begin," she said, "I'd like to present some additional evidence. These are Eleanor Morrison's personal diaries, covering the period from 2006 until her death. I'm going to read some relevant passages." She read Mom's entry about Karen's Christmas 2015 visit, the part about wanting to discuss the will, but Karen being too distracted. She read the Thanksgiving 2019 entry about Karen canceling and Mom still wanting to have the conversation. She read the birthday entry about trying to tell Karen about the will but being cut off. Karen's face went pale. "Those are private. You can't just read my mother's private thoughts. They're relevant evidence in a will contest." Eleanor documented her interactions with both her children. Her own words show that she tried to tell you about her decision, but you were unavailable. Monica pulled out the unsent email. She also drafted this email in April 2020, explaining her decision to leave the house to Robert. She apparently never sent it, perhaps not wanting to hurt you, but her intent is crystal clear. She read the email aloud. The words about Robert giving up so much, about Karen calling when she could, about the house going to Robert because he'd earned it. That's just a draft. Mom never sent it. She obviously reconsidered. Or she decided to tell you in person, which your own visit records show she rarely had opportunity to do. James Porter was reading the diary entries. His expression had changed. This does provide context. It suggests Eleanor tried to communicate her wishes to Karen but was unable to due to limited contact. Monica wasn't done. Let's talk about the actual care provided. She pulled out a thick stack of papers. These are medical records from Providence Portland Medical Center, covering 18 years. Every single appointment lists Robert as primary contact, emergency contact, and decision maker. His phone number, his name. She flipped through pages. 2006, colonoscopy, contact, Robert Morrison, 2008. Fall injury, contact, Robert Morrison. 2010, pneumonia, contact, Robert Morrison. And so on, through 2024. 18 years of medical care, and Karen's name appears exactly 0 times. Karen found her voice. I was in San Francisco. Of course, Rob was the local contact. Monica pulled out more papers, financial records, bank statements showing monthly transfers from Robert's account to Eleanor's. $2,000, $3,000, sometimes more. From 2006 to 2024, Robert transferred a total of $342,000 to support his mother's care. Home modifications, aid costs, medical expenses, daily living costs, $342,000 over 18 years. She turned to Karen. How much did you contribute financially? Karen's attorney objected. This isn't about money. This is about Eleanor's wishes. Actually, it is about money. Karen is claiming she provided substantial support to justify equal inheritance. Let's examine that claim. How much money did you send your mother, Karen? Karen looked at her attorney. He whispered something. She looked back at Monica. I sent money when I could. Mom never asked for much. According to Eleanor's records, you sent $500 a month from 2022 to 2024. That's $12,000 total. Robert contributed over $300,000. You're claiming equal inheritance based on 1/30 of his financial contribution. The room went silent. James Porter was looking at the bank records. Robert also took a reduced teaching schedule in 2023, costing him approximately $25,000 in lost income. He installed a wheelchair ramp in 2022, paid for a stair lift in 2020, covered all home maintenance and repairs. The total economic value of his care is probably closer to $400,000. Karen was white. I didn't know Rob was spending that much. You didn't ask. You were in San Francisco building your career while Robert was here, day after day, year after year, caring for your mother. I pulled out one more document from my briefcase, the one I'd been holding back. There's something else, I said quietly. In 2020, during the pandemic, I asked you to help financially. Do you remember? Karen nodded slowly. I have the email exchange. You told me you'd just bought a vacation place in Tahoe and things were tight. Then you sent $500 a month. I didn't push because I didn't want to fight. I just covered the difference. I slid the printed emails across the table. You bought a vacation house while our mother was struggling to pay for the aid she needed. I was paying $2,000 a month out of my teaching salary while you were expanding your real estate portfolio. Karen's attorney was reading fast, whispering urgently to her. James Porter looked at the evidence spread across the table. Given these new materials, he said carefully, I don't believe mediation will result in a settlement favorable to Karen's position. The documentation is very clear. Eleanor Morrison's intent, as expressed in her diary, her unsent communication, and her formal will, was to leave the house to Robert. The care records support that this decision was based on years of actual, daily caregiving versus minimal contact. Stephen Marsh was already packing his briefcase. I need to consult with my client. May we take a break? We took a break. Monica and I went to the hallway. My hands were shaking as I tried to drink water from the fountain. You knew about the money you gave her? Monica asked. I knew. I just never added it up before. Never put it all in one place. $342,000. That's a powerful rebuttal to claims of equal contribution. When we returned to the conference room, Karen and Stephen were already there. Karen looked smaller somehow, defeated. Stephen spoke first. In light of the evidence presented, we're prepared to discuss withdrawal of the contest. He paused. However, we believe there's still a moral obligation to recognize the family connection. We're proposing a settlement of $100,000 to Karen in recognition of her relationship with her mother and her emotional loss. Monica laughed. You mean in recognition of your failed lawsuit? That's not happening. Karen, I said, ignoring the lawyers, do you want to know the truth about those visits you mentioned? Christmas 2015, Thanksgiving 2019, the birthday party? She looked at me. Christmas 2015, you spent most of the weekend on work calls. Mom wanted to talk to you about her will, but you seemed distracted. Thanksgiving 2019, you canceled at the last minute. Work thing in New York. Mom wanted to tell you about her decision, but you weren't there. The birthday party. You called for 10 minutes and cut Mom off when she tried to bring it up because Derek was waiting to leave for dinner reservations. How do you know all that? Because Mom wrote it in her diary. Because I was there for all of it. Because I was always there. Karen's eyes were wet. I didn't know she wanted to tell me those things. She tried. You were too busy. That's not judgment, Karen. That's just fact. You had a life in San Francisco. But you can't rewrite history now and claim you were here. You weren't. What do you want me to say, Rob? That I was a terrible daughter? That I should have dropped everything to move back to Portland? I wanted you to visit more than twice a year. I wanted you to call more than once every 2 weeks. I wanted you to help pay for Mom's care when I asked. That's all. James Porter cleared his throat. I think we need to be realistic about where this case would go if it proceeded to trial. The evidence strongly supports the validity of Eleanor's will and the reasonableness of her decision. A judge would almost certainly uphold it. Stephen Marsh leaned over and had a long, whispered conversation with Karen. Finally, Karen sat up straight. I want to withdraw the contest. She looked at me. I want to apologize. For what? For this. For the lawsuit, for the accusations. For thinking Mom had promised me something she hadn't. I convinced myself those conversations happened because I wanted them to have happened. I wanted to believe I mattered as much as you did. You mattered to Mom, just differently. Not enough. Not where it counted. You gave up 18 years. I sent flowers and made phone calls. Stephen Marsh was already drawing up withdrawal papers. James Porter looked relieved. I'm sorry, Robert, Karen said again. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know I'm sorry. She signed the withdrawal papers. Stephen Marsh collected them. They left. Monica was smiling. That's what we call a complete victory. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like I'd just lost my sister. Linda was waiting when I got home. We still lived in the house on Hawthorne, the house that was legally mine now. I told her everything. She held my hand and was quiet for a long time. You okay? I don't know. I won, but I feel like I lost something bigger. Dad's gone. Mom's gone. Now Karen and I don't know if we can come back from this. She asked for forgiveness. She asked after her lawyer told her she had no chance of winning. That's not real remorse. That's just accepting defeat. Linda squeezed my hand. People are complicated, Rob. Maybe Karen really did misunderstand. Maybe Mom's confusion, or just wishful thinking, created this whole situation. Maybe your sister isn't a villain, just someone who made a mistake. I thought about that for days. Christmas came. Karen didn't call. I didn't call her either. I sent her a card, like I'd done every year since we were kids. She didn't send one back. 3 weeks later, I received a letter, handwritten on Karen's personal stationery. Rob, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I've been doing a lot of thinking since the mediation ended. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand what happened, why I did what I did. I think I created a narrative in my head based on what I wanted to be true. I wanted to believe I'd been a good daughter, that I'd been there for Mom, that I deserved equal recognition. I couldn't face the reality that I'd chosen my career over my family. That was selfish. It was wrong. I should have been proud of you. I should have celebrated what you sacrificed, instead of trying to claim credit for it. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm working on myself. I'm trying to understand why I did this, and I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Your sister, Karen. I read the letter 3 times. I showed it to Linda. What do you think? I asked. I think she means it. I think she's horrified by what she did and she's trying to make it right. Is an apology enough? I don't know. That's up to you. I didn't call Karen. Not that day. Not that week. But I kept the letter. 2 months later, in February 2025, Linda had a health scare. Nothing serious, but it required a small surgery and a few days recovery. I was stressed, trying to handle everything, and without thinking, I called Karen. She answered on the first ring. Rob? Linda's having surgery. It's minor, but I'm freaking out a bit. What do you need? Just someone to talk to, I guess. We talked for an hour. She listened. She asked questions. She was present in a way I hadn't experienced with her in years. After Linda's surgery, Karen sent flowers. A week later, she called just to check in. Not because it was a Sunday, not because it was obligation, but just because. In March 2025, on what would have been Mom's 85th birthday, Karen and I met at the cemetery. We stood together at Mom's grave, next to Dad's. I'm sorry, Rob, Karen said. Not just for the lawsuit, but for all of it. For not being there when it mattered. I know. I can't change the past. I can't give you back those 18 years or reimburse you for the $300,000 or make up for all the times I should have visited and didn't. I'm not asking you to. What are you asking? I'm asking if we can figure out what we are to each other now. Not the siblings we were before the lawsuit. Those siblings are gone. But maybe something new. I'd like that. We visit Mom's grave together once a month now. It's not the relationship we had before. That's dead and buried, like our parents. But maybe it's something more honest. Last month, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Karen and made an offer. I'm thinking about selling the house. Linda and I want to downsize, maybe travel while we still can. The house is too big for just the two of us. Okay, before I list it, I want to offer you something. Not 50%, not even close. But Mom's jewelry and personal items are worth maybe $10,000. The house will sell for probably $1.4 million. I want to give you an extra $40,000, $50 total. As a gesture, Rob, you don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. Not because you deserve it legally, you don't, but because I spent 18 years with Mom, and you spent those years building a life in San Francisco. We both made choices. I got the time with Mom, you got the career. Neither of us got everything. That's generous. Are you sure? I'm sure. On one condition. What? You use some of it to visit more often. Not me and Linda necessarily, though we'd like that. But Sophie and Jake, your niece and nephew, they barely know their aunt. I will. I promise. I don't know if this is wisdom or just exhaustion, but it's where I've ended up. I'm 62 years old. I spent 18 years caring for my mother, watching her decline, being there for her final breath. I built a life around duty and family and showing up. Karen built a different life. Neither choice was wrong, exactly. But choices have consequences. I learned that documentation matters, that family promises need to be in writing, that courts care more about evidence than feelings. But I also learned that people are complicated, that motives are layered, that sometimes the villain in your story is just your younger sister, who made different choices and then couldn't live with the consequences. I forgive Karen. Not because what she did was okay, not because the lawsuit was justified or the accusations were fair. I forgive her because holding on to anger was eating me alive, and because life is too short to lose everyone. We're building something new now. Not the sibling relationship we had growing up, not the easy affection of childhood. Something harder won and more honest. She's not my enemy. She's my sister who made a terrible mistake, and I'm her brother who's trying to figure out what family means after everything falls apart. That's not a perfect ending. It's not a happy ending, but it's real. And right now, that's enough.